It's funny how the loudest moments in life aren't always made of words. They're made of things like the crack of a hand against your cheek while your whole family watches. Like the sound of your father, once your hero, calling you a failure in front of a room full of people you thought loved you. It happened at the worst possible moment, Thanksgiving. The kind of day that's supposed to be about family, loyalty, warmth. For me, it was the day I learned that loyalty is AF *****ing myth. My name's Eric Miller, and my wife, or should I say, my former wife, is Madison. Madison was the kind of woman who could smile while stabbing you in the back. Platinum blonde, eyes like cold glass, a voice sweet enough to rot your teeth if you listened too long. We had a house, a life, plans. Or so I thought. The day started normal enough. Madison acted all smiles and kisses, fluttering around the kitchen in a tight dress that, let's be honest, was meant for anything but family. Her mother, Joanne, whispered behind her wine glass, "She still got it, doesn't she?" I laughed it off. I had gotten used to Madison needing attention like a plant needs sunlight. I didn't know that by sundown, I'd be choking on my own stupidity. When dinner came, Madison was glued to her phone more than usual, laughing at messages, turning the screen away whenever I leaned in. I asked once if everything was okay. She winked and said, "Relax, Eric. Not everyone's out to betray you." She said that. That's when I knew. My gut clenched so hard I thought I was going to throw up right there on the turkey. I had suspected for months. The late nights. The last-minute girl trips. The new lingerie she claimed was just for confidence. But hearing that lie slip off her tongue so smoothly, it broke something inside me. And I came prepared. I had set up a drone. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but when you love someone who lies as easily as breathing, you get desperate. The drone caught everything. Her meeting some jackass named Dylan, a coworker at a hotel penthouse. And not just on any day. On Thanksgiving. The same damn day she kissed me goodbye and said she was going to see her sister. But it gets better. The photos I had weren't just of her with Dylan. They caught her cheating on Dylan too. She had another guy lined up while the first one was still getting dressed. Classy, right? I waited until dessert. Everyone sat around the table. Mom, Dad, Madison's folks, her bratty younger brother Austin, and a couple of cousins who never missed a free meal. I stood up without saying a word and placed a stack of printed drone photos in the center of the table like a dealer laying down his final hand. At first, there was confusion. Then gasps. Joanne dropped her wine glass. Madison's face turned white, then bright red. Before anyone could react, my father, James Miller, the so-called pillar of the family, stood up and smacked me across the face so hard I staggered. "You're the one to blame for her cheating," he roared. "If you were a real man, she wouldn't have needed someone else." The whole room burst into laughter. Laughter. At me. My mother chuckled behind her napkin. Madison didn't even bother looking guilty. She just leaned back in her chair, legs crossed, a little smirk curling her lips. I didn't say a word. I pulled out my phone and mirrored it to the TV behind me. The drone footage started playing. Madison, Dylan, some sweaty, tangled mess of betrayal. Then Madison, naked in the same room not an hour later, with another man. The footage played like a highlight reel of my humiliation. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. Silence hit the room like a bomb. Faces frozen. Joanne turned green. My father sank back into his chair, mouth flapping open like a dying fish. And just when I thought I had seen it all, the final clip rolled. Madison, sitting on the bed, bragging into her phone to a friend about how easy it was to play Dylan and me against each other. Laughing about how she might even upgrade, again if a better offer came along. I shut off the TV, walked upstairs, grabbed the divorce papers already prepared and signed them. Left them on the kitchen counter next to Madison's untouched slice of pumpkin pie. And then I disappeared into the night. No goodbyes. No second chances. The next morning, I woke up to 148 missed calls. And for the first time in years, I smiled out. I didn't even look at my phone the first few hours. I drove through the empty streets, headlights smearing against the night like tired ghosts. No music. No destination. Just me and the kind of silence that drills a hole through your chest. 148 missed calls. Most from Madison. Some from my mother. Even a few from her precious Dylan, whose contact name popped up as unknown, probably thinking blocking his caller ID would make me pick up. I didn't. I drove until sunrise, parked my car on a cliffside overlooking the ocean, and watched the sky burn itself awake. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt free. Then the messages started coming in. Madison. Eric, please call me. You're blowing this out of proportion. I can explain. You're embarrassing yourself. I laughed so hard I scared a flock of seagulls nearby. I was embarrassing myself? She had the guts to turn this around on me, after getting caught on camera playing musical chairs with bodies? No, not this time. By mid-morning, I finally texted her 2 words. Talk to my lawyer. The reaction was immediate. The calls tripled. Now her sister Ashley was calling. Her mother Joanne. Even her father Robert, who hadn't spoken more than 10 words to me in the past 5 years, suddenly had a lot to say. I blocked every number one by one. It felt good, like cutting away rotten meat before it could poison the rest of you. A few hours later, my front door rattled on its hinges. I didn't answer. Through the peephole, I watched Madison standing there, pounding her fist like she owned the place. She wore a little black dress, the same one she used to wear when she wanted to distract me from arguments. She knew exactly what she was doing. She screamed through the door. That she loved me. That it was all a mistake. That she was drunk. That Dylan didn't mean anything. That I had driven her to it because I was too distant lately. I almost opened the door. Almost. But then I remembered the way her lips curled into a smirk while my father hit me. The way she leaned back, proud, while everyone laughed. Like she had finally gotten the power she craved. I leaned my head against the door and whispered so low she couldn't hear me. You're nothing but a liar. She pounded harder, yelling now, calling me a coward, a failure, screaming that I would never find anyone better because no real woman would want a loser like me. That part hurt more than the slap, more than the betrayal, because a tiny part of me still loved her, still wanted her to be the woman I had married, not the snake who now stood outside my door. Eventually, the pounding stopped. I waited, listened to the sound of her high heels clacking away into the distance. I slid down to the floor and stayed there for a long time. No tears, no shouting, just a quiet, dull ache gnawing at my ribs like a sickness you can't vomit out. That night, I opened a bottle of whiskey and started writing a list. A list of everything I had lost because of Madison. Trust, pride, years of my life, the belief that love meant something. And under that, in shaking letters, I wrote one more thing. Freedom, because even though it hurt like hell, I was free. Or at least, I was about to be. 3 days later, she found a way to corner me. I was walking out of my lawyer's office, feeling like I had just signed the death certificate of the last 10 years of my life. Papers in one hand, coffee in the other, when there she was. Madison, standing by my car like she still had some kind of claim over my space. I stopped a few feet away, heart pounding. She looked beautiful, of course. Madison always did. Tight jeans, a low-cut top that screamed desperation, sunglasses hiding whatever dead thing was left in her eyes. Eric, she said, voice trembling just enough to sound real. Please. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her, daring her to lie to my face the way she did to everyone else. She took off her sunglasses, letting me see the carefully applied tears clinging to her lashes. Oscar-worthy performance. I made a mistake, she whispered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. My laugh cut through the air sharp and ugly. You didn't mean to climb into his bed? You didn't mean to laugh about it with your friends? She flinched like I had slapped her. Good. Let her feel something real for once. It wasn't like that, Madison hissed, voice low so the parking lot wouldn't hear. It only happened a few times. I swear. And Dylan, he doesn't mean anything to me. He's stupid. I was lonely. You were always working. Blame me. Of course. Textbook Madison. You were lonely, I repeated slowly, taking a step closer. You were lonely. So you decided to act like a cheap drama queen on Thanksgiving? At a penthouse you swore you didn't even know about. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for a new lie, a new excuse. Nothing came out. I threw my coffee into the trash, pulled the divorce papers out of my briefcase, and held them between us like a loaded weapon. Sign these, I said. Today. Madison's mask cracked. Gone was the teary, repentant wife. Now she was all sharp edges and poison. You think you're gonna just walk away? She snapped, stepping closer until I could smell the fake sweetness of her perfume. You think you're gonna leave me with nothing? You deserve nothing, I said, voice low, dangerous. She laughed. A hard, ugly sound. We'll see about that, Eric, she spat. Maybe I should tell everyone you hit me. Maybe I should take the house, the car, drain your bank account. You think you're the only one who can play dirty? My jaw tightened so hard it hurt. I wanted to scream, to tell her what a piece of trash she really was. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. Because the truth was, I had been ready for this too. I have everything, I said quietly. Footage. Messages. Witnesses. You can try. But you'll lose everything you have left. For a second, she froze. Really froze, like the realization finally hit her that I wasn't the same idiot who once believed every tear she shed. Madison stepped back, biting her lip hard enough to draw blood. The look in her eyes changed, from anger to fear to something cold and calculating. I'll make your life hell, she whispered. You'll regret this. You already made my life hell, I said, stepping past her toward my car. And the only thing I regret is wasting so much time loving a fraud like you. I didn't look back. Not when she called my name. Not when she started crying again, louder this time, as if the volume of her sobs could erase the wreckage she caused. I got in my car, slammed the door shut, and drove off without a second glance. That was the last time I ever spoke to Madison face to face. Or so I thought. You think when you cut a snake out of your life, the venom leaves with it. It doesn't. It hides in the wounds she left behind. It festers in the people you thought were yours. 2 weeks after the confrontation outside my lawyer's office, Madison showed her true colors even brighter. And this time, she wasn't alone. It started small rumors. Whispers at work, side-eyes at the grocery store. Old friends suddenly not answering my calls. Neighbors pretending they didn't see me when I walked my dog. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Maybe the whole thing had just left me sensitive. But then the whispers turned into confrontations. How could you hit her? Eric. One woman hissed at me in line at the coffee shop. Monster, another muttered as I passed by. I stood there, stunned, holding my coffee like a fool, wondering what the hell was happening. It didn't take long to find out. Madison had gone full nuclear. She had posted a picture online, her, sporting a fake black eye and a sob story about how her abusive husband finally snapped when she tried to leave him. She painted herself as the victim. Sweet, innocent Madison, betrayed by the man who refused to accept she wanted out. No mention of Dylan. No mention of the penthouse. No mention of her parade of lovers. Just me, the villain. She had even roped in her family to back her lies. Her mother Joanne gave interviews to her little Facebook crowd, talking about how they had always been worried about Eric's anger issues. Her father Robert nodded solemnly in the background like he wasn't the same guy who once called me the best thing to ever happen to Madison. It was all happening faster than I could react. My inbox filled with hate. Coworkers distanced themselves politely but firmly. Even my own cousin Logan, a guy I had grown up with, sent me a cold text. If what she says is true, don't bother coming around anymore. I sat in my car that night, staring at that message, feeling like the ground had cracked open beneath me. All because of her. Because Madison couldn't handle losing. She didn't just want me out of her life. She wanted to burn my entire existence to the ground. And she was good at it. By the end of the week, the police showed up at my door. Not to arrest me, thank God, but to check on things. A wellness visit. Someone had made an anonymous tip that I was unstable and might harm myself or others. I knew exactly who made that call. The officers were polite but firm. They asked if I had any weapons, if I was feeling overwhelmed, if I needed help. I played it calm, showed them my ID, answered every question, and shut the door behind them with shaking hands. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because I finally understood what I was dealing with. Madison wasn't just a cheater. She wasn't just a liar. She was a full-blown sociopath. Someone who could destroy lies with the same smile she used to say, "I love you." And the worst part? I had loved her. Truly loved her. Given her everything I had, my loyalty, my trust, my name. And she was repaying me by trying to wipe me off the map. Well, that. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one. But it wasn't going to be the kind she expected. No screaming. No violence. No dirty tricks. Just cold, brutal, surgical destruction. The kind you don't see coming until it's already over. After that night, something inside me flipped. The sadness, the confusion, the betrayal, it all hardened into something sharper. Not hate. Not rage. Focus. If Madison wanted to destroy me, fine. But she was going to find out exactly how dangerous a calm man can be. First step, gather ammunition. Real ammunition, not fists or shouting, but evidence. I already had the drone footage. The recordings of her laughing about Dylan, bragging about manipulating me. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. So I started digging. Old emails, bank records, deleted text messages pulled from backups. Madison had been sloppy. When you think you're smarter than everyone, you get careless. I found payments she had made to cover hotel stays. Gifts she bought for her boys, not just Dylan, but at least two others. One was a personal trainer named Chase. The other was a tattooed bartender named Logan, yeah, same name as my cousin who had turned on me. Fitting, right? I pieced it all together like a jigsaw puzzle made of razor blades. And while I worked, Madison kept trying to contact me. Love bombing one day, threats the next. One message would be, "Please, let's talk. I miss you." The next would say, "You're nothing without me. I'll ruin you if you don't cooperate." I didn't respond to a single one. Silence was my weapon now. Second step, bait the hook. I called a family meeting. Not at my house, too risky. I booked a small conference room at a local hotel. Neutral ground. Secure. I invited everyone. My parents, Madison's parents, my cousins, her siblings. Madison herself. The invitation was simple. "I want to clear the air once and for all. Please come." For closure. They came. Oh, they came. Curiosity is a powerful drug. I set up the room myself. Chairs in a tight semicircle. A large screen at the front. A single table with a folder sitting in the center, thick with evidence. Madison walked in late, of course. Sunglasses on, designer bag slung over her shoulder like she was strolling into a brunch, not a firing squad. She smirked at me like she had already won. "You're looking rough, Eric," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Yes, it's true what they say about bitter men aging faster. There were a few uncomfortable chuckles from the crowd. Her side of the family mostly. Mine sat stiffly, faces unreadable. I didn't react. Didn't rise to the bait. Instead, I clicked the remote in my hand, and the screen behind me came to life. The room went dead silent. First, the drone footage. Madison with Dylan. Madison with Chase. Madison with Logan. Different days, different locations. Same disgusting pattern. Then screenshots, bank transactions, love notes, plans for secret getaways on weekends. She told me she was visiting her sick mother. Each image hit the room like a hammer blow. People shifted in their chairs. Some of the women gasped. Joanne's hand flew to her mouth. Madison's face? Stone cold. She didn't cry. Didn't scream. She just sat there, chewing the inside of her cheek like she was solving a math problem. I dropped the final blow. Audio recordings. Madison's voice, clear as day, bragging about how she could milk Eric dry before moving on to a real man who could keep up with her. The last recording was her laughing with her friend about how dumb Dylan was for thinking he was the only side piece. When the final clip ended, the room stayed frozen. No one laughed now. No one defended her. Not even her parents. I looked at Madison one last time and said, "Tell me again how you were the victim." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The room sat there in suffocating silence, everyone too stunned to move. Even the air felt heavier, like the truth itself had thickened it. Madison didn't speak. Didn't defend herself. Didn't even try. She just sat there, arms folded, looking at me like I was the one who had wronged her. That's when her father, Robert, broke the silence. You disgusting little." His voice cracked, and he had to look away, burying his face in his hands. Joanne started crying, soft and ugly. Even her brat of a brother, Austin, couldn't meet my eyes. For a moment, I thought it was over. I thought maybe, just maybe, she would stand up, walk out of the room, and never bother me again. But no, Madison wasn't built for shame. She was built for war. She stood up slowly, smoothing her dress, and gave a cold little laugh. "You're all acting like you're saints," she said, her voice cutting through the heavy air. "Half the people in this room have secrets just as bad. You're only mad because I got caught." Joanne gasped. Robert's face turned an ugly shade of red. Madison wasn't done. She turned to my father, James, and said sweetly, "Should we talk about your Wednesday nights at the casino? How you blow your retirement money trying to impress cocktail waitresses?" James opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then she swung her attention to my mother. "And you, Linda, still texting that old high school boyfriend behind Dad's back? Just for fun, right?" My mother dropped her coffee cup onto the floor, shattering it. Madison turned to the others, one by one, spitting out secrets like venom. Austin's drug habit. Ashley's affair with her best friend's husband. Robert's DUI nobody knew about. Every dirty secret, every hidden shame, Madison dragged it all into the light in one final, scorched earth attack. If she was going down, she was taking everyone with her. I should have been angry. Should have shouted, grabbed her, dragged her out of the room by force. But all I felt was tired. Bone deep, soul-sick tired. I had spent so long thinking I could fix this, that if I loved hard enough, forgave deep enough, fought brave enough, I could pull Madison back from the edge. But you can't save someone who enjoys the fall. She turned back to me, smiled that cruel little smile, and said, "You never stood a chance, Eric. You're too weak." I met her eyes for the last time, and I finally, truly, let her go. "You're right," I said quietly. "I was weak." I picked up the folder of evidence from the table, tucked it under my arm, and walked out of the room without looking back. Madison screamed after me, her voice shrill, desperate, poisonous. "You think anyone's going to want you after this? You're broken. You're nothing." Her words chased me down the hallway, but they didn't pierce me. Not anymore. Outside, the late afternoon sun blinded me for a second. I stood there, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the weight of a decade lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't chasing anything. Not love. Not forgiveness. Not approval. I was chasing myself. I got into my car, tossed the folder onto the passenger seat, and drove. No plan. No destination. Just forward. Always forward. The weeks that followed were quiet. Unnervingly quiet. No calls. No texts. No screaming outside my door. Madison was gone. Or at least, she was pretending to be. At first, I didn't trust the silence. I kept expecting the next hit, some fake restraining order, some tabloid trash article about how I was a monster who had driven his wife into the arms of other men. But nothing came. It was like she had simply evaporated. And maybe in a way, she had. The Madison I had loved, or thought I loved, had never been real. She was a mirage, something built on need, lies, and desperation. And now I was left with the wreckage. Picking up the pieces wasn't as clean as I wanted it to be. Some nights, I still woke up sweating, heart hammering in my chest, convinced I could hear her voice sneering in my ear. Other nights, I'd roll over instinctively, reaching for her in the dark, before remembering the truth. Healing isn't linear. It's messy, brutal, unforgiving. But every day, the weight got a little lighter. The shame a little duller. I started running again. Something I hadn't done since we got married. Madison had always mocked it, calling it pathetic and a waste of time. I started cooking real meals instead of living off fast food and alcohol. I cleaned out the house, tore down every photo of us, threw out her leftover makeup, boxed up her designer bags, and dumped them at a charity shop. I even adopted a dog, a grumpy old German shepherd named Duke, who hated everyone but somehow loved me immediately. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again, until the letter arrived. It showed up one morning, wedged awkwardly into my mailbox. No return address. Just my name scrawled in handwriting I recognized instantly. Madison. My stomach twisted as I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in messy, rushed words. "Eric, you probably hate me. You should. I deserve it. But I just needed you to know. I'm pregnant. I don't know if it's yours or Dylan's or someone else's. I'm keeping it. I don't expect anything from you. I just thought you should know." I dropped the letter like it had burned me. Pregnant. I staggered back into the house, letter clutched in my shaking hand. Pregnant. Could it even be mine? The timeline was messy. God knew she'd been with half the city behind my back. But still, the thought gnawed at me. If there was even a tiny chance the child was mine, didn't I owe it to them to find out? Didn't I owe it to myself? I sat down at the kitchen table, Duke resting his heavy head on my lap, and stared at the letter until my vision blurred. I could walk away, pretend it wasn't real, start fresh, clean, no looking back. Or I could step back into the fire one last time, not for Madison, not for the past, but for the possibility of a future that was bigger than my own pain. I didn't make a decision that day, or the next, but deep inside, I knew I would. Because no matter how much Madison had tried to destroy me, there was still a part of me that refused to let her be the final chapter of my life. My story wasn't over. Not even close. A week later, I stood outside a sterile little clinic, the letter folded in my pocket like a ticking bomb. Madison had agreed to a DNA test, not because she cared about the truth, but because I made it clear. No test, no money, no contact, nothing. She wanted options. And Madison always chose whatever kept her fingers in the pie. Inside, the waiting room was filled with cheap chairs and bad magazines. I sat across from her, separated by a universe of betrayal. She looked different. Or maybe I had just finally learned how to see her clearly. The mask was slipping. No perfect makeup, no fake tears. Just a woman who had spent her whole life playing games and was now running out of players. We didn't speak. They called us back separately. Quick, clinical, cold. A few swabs, a few signatures, and it was done. The nurse said it would take a few days. Madison tried to catch my eye as I left, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. I turned and walked out, feeling Duke's leash tug gently in my hand as he waited loyally outside. 3 days later, the clinic called. I already knew the answer before the woman on the other end even spoke. Mr. Miller, the test results show that you are not the biological father. Not mine. Not my mistake to fix. Not my burden to carry. When I hung up the phone, the strangest thing happened. I laughed. Not bitter, not angry, a real laugh. For the first time in years, it felt like my lungs could actually breathe without collapsing. I wasn't trapped anymore. I was free. Truly, finally free. Madison texted that night. A long, desperate message about how the test didn't change anything, how we could still work it out, how no one would ever love me like she did. I didn't respond. I blocked her number, deleted her email, scrubbed her existence from my life like wiping dirt off a window. Some people don't deserve a second thought. Madison was one of them. In the months that followed, I built something better. Not revenge. Not bitterness. A real life. I made new friends, real ones, not the hollow social climbers Madison had dragged into our world. I started traveling, taking Duke along for the ride. We hiked mountains, camped under stars, swam in oceans that didn't care who had broken my heart. And slowly, quietly, I started living again. Not surviving. Living. Sometimes, I catch myself thinking back, not because I miss her, but because I don't. And that's the real victory. She took everything she could from me, my pride, my security, my blind trust. But she didn't take my ability to heal. She didn't take my soul. If you've ever been where I was, broken, humiliated, used, let me tell you something. You are not what they did to you. You are what you choose to become after. Some people will never love anything the way they love control. You can't fix them. You can't save them. You can only save yourself. And when you do, when you finally choose yourself, there's no greater revenge. There's just peace. There's just freedom. There's just you standing on the ashes of everything they tried to burn, still breathing, still standing, still alive. And that, my friends, is the ending they never see coming.